Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. We start by seeing a vessel where a little girl named Elizabeth sings and observes the sea ahead covered in dense fog. A man named Gibbs asks her to be silent as cursed pirates live in the sea and might attack them. The lieutenant of the ship, Murtaugh, tells him to stay away from the girl, who remarks that it would be exciting to encounter pirates and that if they find any, they would swiftly meet their demise. However, Governor Swan, who is also present, disapproves of discussing such matters in front of his daughter. Moments later, while Elizabeth gazes at the sea, she spots a boy drifting on a piece of wood. They rescue the boy, named Will Turner, and further ahead, they come across a destroyed vessel, which Gibbs attributes to pirates. The ship's lieutenant orders them to go in boats for a closer look. Meanwhile, Elizabeth takes care of Will and notices a medallion with a skull on it, identifying him as a pirate. Concerned for his life, she hides the medallion from the lieutenant's view to protect him from harm. Time passes, and several years later, Elizabeth, now an adult, awakens and admires the necklace with the pirate medallion, then puts it around her neck. At that moment, a visitor arrives. It's Will Turner, who has also grown up and brings a sword as a gift to the governor, receiving recognition for his work as a swordsmith's apprentice. As the beautiful Elizabeth descends, she catches Will's eye, revealing a friendship that was formed since the day they met at sea. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Captain Jack Sparrow, who approaches a town in his small boat where dead pirates are displayed at the entrance as a warning to others, but he remains unfazed. Upon reaching the port, his ship sinks completely. He is then confronted by a collector who charges him for the stay of his boat there. Jack pays, but he cheats the collector and steals more than he paid. As he explores the place and the ship's present, Elizabeth awaits the end of Murtaugh's award ceremony. Jack approaches one of the ships, but two guards stop him from boarding. They engage in conversation, and the guards mention a Royal Navy ship called the Interceptor, known for its speed in those waters. Jack, however, speaks of another feared ship that sails at high speeds, called the Black Pearl. One of the guards says he has heard of it, but the other is skeptical. This gives Jack an opportunity to climb aboard the ship, but he is soon surrounded. At the ceremony, Murtaugh invites Elizabeth to speak privately with him, and he tries to express his feelings for her. However, due to wearing tight clothing that restricts his breathing, he faints and falls into the sea. Jack, who is talking to the soldiers to avoid being arrested, sees the woman falling into the water and decides to save her. When the medallion she's wearing comes into contact with the sea, it emits a sonic wave that spreads throughout the ocean, even changing the wind direction. Jack manages to rescue Elizabeth, and she regains consciousness. He notices the medallion and asks her where she got it, but Commodore's guards surround them at that moment. Discovering that Jack is a pirate and possesses weapons and a seemingly useless compass, Commodore orders them to arrest him. Elizabeth tries to prevent her savior from being taken away, but her plea is ignored. Taking advantage of their carelessness, Jack takes Elizabeth hostage and forces the guards to return his belongings. Once in control, Jack begins his escape and departs, evading the soldiers' shots. He hides inside the swordsmith's house, and luckily, the artisan is asleep. Jack attempts to free himself from the chains but is interrupted by Will's arrival. Will notices some things out of place and is surprised by Jack, who finds him familiar. Jack decides to leave, but Will grabs his sword and confronts him. Jack is impressed with Will's sword skills but doesn't want to fight him. Will throws his sword to block the door, preventing Jack from leaving, and the pirate ends up fighting the blacksmith again. They discover that Will is the one who forges the weapons, and Jack is amazed by seeing them. Both show proficiency in swordplay, but Jack cheats using dust and wins against Will. Suddenly, soldiers knock on the door, and before they enter, the sleeping man wakes up and knocks Jack down with a glass bottle. Soon, Commodore and his men take Jack into custody. At night, Will works on the swords, and meanwhile, a ship approaches the port. The governor and Commodore are having a conversation when they are startled by a cannon shot. Inside the prison, Jack recognizes the sound and confirms that it's the Black Pearl, a pirate ship known for attacking ships and villages. Pirates invade the town, and Will arms himself to face them and help defeat them. The soldiers are attacked, and the city remains under a heavy assault. At her home, Elizabeth is surprised by pirates who kill the butler and break into the house, forcing her to lock herself in her room. Two of them manage to enter, and she tries to fight them off but fails. She continues to run and hides in the governor's study. The pirates invade and search for her, stating that they've come to retrieve what she has. They find her, and fearing the worst, Elizabeth demands the right of parley, which means that a captured pirate has the right to be taken to the enemy ship's captain and cannot be harmed until negotiations are concluded. Both parties agree to the pirate code, even though Elizabeth is not one of them. In the city, Will sees Elizabeth but is knocked unconscious. In the prison, a cannonball hits one of the cells, causing some prisoners to escape, but leaving Jack still imprisoned. He tries to call the dog that has the cell keys, but the animal gets scared and runs away. At that moment, two pirates approach Jack, and they recognize each other but don't get along. When one of them grabs Jack through the cell bars, the moonlight reveals the true appearance of some pirates from the Black Pearl, showing them as undead beings. Elizabeth is taken to the captain of the Black Pearl, the old Barbossa. She asks for a ceasefire in her town, but the captain refuses. She then threatens to throw the medallion into the sea, which frightens them, as it's something they've been seeking. When asked for her name, she gives her first name along with the surname Turner so as not to be recognized as the governor's daughter. Strangely, this impresses the pirates, and Barbossa questions her about how she came into possession of the medallion, but Elizabeth remains silent. He asks for it, and she hands it over, letting his monkey keep it, and the agreement is made, but she must go with them. At dawn, Will wakes up and sees the state of the town. Worried about Elizabeth, he goes to the governor to ask for help. He suggests asking Jack Sparrow about where they can find the Black Pearl. Commodore rejects this idea and tells Will to leave. So, he goes to Jack to ask where he can find the Black Pearl, and Jack says there is a place you know. Making a deal with Will, Jack is freed by him. They then head to the port and plan to steal the Interceptor, but Jack takes another ship first, with a plan in mind. Commodore quickly approaches the stolen ship and orders his men to search for Jack and Turner. However, we see the two of them getting on the other ship and cutting the ropes, sailing away with the fast Interceptor, leaving Commodore furious. On the Interceptor, Jack reveals that he knew Will Turner's father and says that he was a pirate. Will doesn't want to believe it, but Jack insists it's the truth and says they're going to Tortuga. Sometime later, they arrive at a town near an island where most inhabitants are pirates. They search for a man, an old friend of Jack's, Gibbs. When Jack talks about his plan, Gibbs says it's useless to go after the Black Pearl, but Jack says he has a plan and needs a crew. He also mentions that he has the son of an old pirate, Bootstrap or Bill Turner, which will interest Barbossa. This excites Gibbs, who sets off to find a crew. Meanwhile, at sea, we see the Black Pearl, where the captain is having dinner with Elizabeth. He asks her what she thinks the medallion is, but he explains that the medallion is part of the 882 pieces of Aztec gold that were cursed in the treasure given to Cortez, a treasure that was soaked in blood to prevent his soldiers from being slaughtered. However, even after receiving the treasure, Cortez continued the killings, and a curse was placed on the treasure, stating that any man who steals even one piece will be punished for eternity. Elizabeth doesn't believe it, and Barbossa says he didn't believe it either a long time ago. However, he and his crew found the treasure, spent it all on things they liked, but nothing satisfied them. Then the curse fell upon them, and he knows that the curse can be lifted by returning all the pieces of gold to the chest, along with a sacrifice that needs to be made. Barbossa reveals that Elizabeth possessed the last piece, and now it's almost over. Thinking she's the sacrifice, she tries to leave and stabs the captain in the chest with a knife, but it doesn't kill him. Outside the cabin, she discovers the truth: every pirate there is cursed, and they are living dead who cannot die. Elizabeth tries to hide, but even the monkey is under the curse. The captain stops at the entrance to the room, revealing his skeletal appearance under the moonlight, terrifying her, and she runs back into the cabin to get away from that nightmare. Back with Captain Jack, Gibbs introduces some sailors who are willing to join him. Among them is a woman who turns out to be an old acquaintance of Jack's, and he receives a slap because he previously stole her boat. She agrees to help only if he gives her a new boat in return. Will offers theirs once everything is done. Later, at sea, passing through a storm, Jack looks at his compass that apparently doesn't point north but guides him to somewhere else. Back to Elizabeth, she is prepared and taken to a mysterious island. Jack's boat also approaches the island, and when Gibbs is questioned by Will Turner about Jack's sailing, he says that hardly anyone else knows Jack Sparrow, as he is no longer captain of the Black Pearl. Will discovers that Jack once sailed on the Black Pearl, and Gibbs reveals that after he revealed the treasure's location, there was a mutiny. They took Jack and left him on an island with nothing, and Barbassa was the cause of it. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is taken to a cave where all the treasure is. Moments later, alone with Will, Jack approaches the location and observes what happens. Barbassa presents the cursed chest with Elizabeth standing beside him, possessing the last piece of gold. Close by, Will wants to do something, but Jack stops him, asking him to wait there. However, Will doesn't accept it and knocks him out. Barbassa takes Elizabeth's hand, makes a cut, and bathes the medallion in the blood to break the curse. Barbassa waits, but nothing changes. To be sure, he shoots one of his men, but the man still lives. Barbassa questions Elizabeth about her father being Bill Turner, but she denies it. Frustrated and furious, Barbassa knocks Elizabeth down, and while the pirates wonder what's happening, Will slowly emerges from the water and takes her with him. When they search for her to kill her, they discover that she has escaped and set off to find her. In the confusion, Jack wakes up but is surrounded by the pirates. He demands the right of parley and is taken to Barbassa. Meanwhile, Will manages to take Elizabeth safely to the ship, leaving Jack behind. They hoist the sails and prepare to leave. Barbassa orders Jack to be killed, but the pirate Sparrow says he knows who they need to break the curse. Inside Will's ship, he talks to Elizabeth, and she hands him the locket, revealing that she took it when she found it at sea. Revealing that Will is from a pirate bloodline. Meanwhile, just behind, the Black Pearl heads toward the Interceptor ship. Jack, knowing that Will is the one Barbassa needs, tries to convince him to let him retrieve the medallion for him, suggesting a truce. However, Barbassa doesn't agree and orders Jack to be imprisoned. The Pearl approaches, and to gain speed, Will orders to throw away unnecessary items. Seeing Barbassa preparing an attack, he, along with Gibbs, readies the ship's cannons with whatever is left. Elizabeth comes up with a plan and uses the anchor to maneuver quickly into an attacking position. The ships start firing cannons at each other, and Will's ammunition includes random objects like tableware. The attacks continue, and upon realizing that he has lost the medallion, Will searches inside the ship, while the cannon fire brings down the Interceptor's mast. The pirates begin boarding the ship under Barbassa's orders and then set up the gunpowder for an explosion. Will cannot find the medallion, but Barbassa's monkey finds it and runs away with it. Jack manages to escape and returns to the ship, saving Elizabeth from an attack. Remembering that Will is trapped on the ship's deck, she tries to rescue him but cannot open the hatch. Jack chases after the monkey, but unfortunately, the medallion falls back into Barbassa's hands. The gunpowder is ignited, and Jack's crew is captured. Meanwhile, Will is submerged in the water as the ship gradually sinks. In tense moments, he tries to escape, and everyone watches the Interceptor explode. Elizabeth, thinking Will is dead, is saddened, but shortly after, Will appears and threatens Barbassa, knowing that they are searching for his blood. Will threatens himself to dash Barbassa's hopes. Barbassa asks what he wants, and Will says he wants Elizabeth free. Barbassa agrees to the deal, but moments later, it becomes evident that he tricked Will. He prepares to throw Elizabeth overboard near an island. He does so, and they toss Jack overboard too, who dives to retrieve his weapons thrown into the water. A while later, the two reach the island with no resources. However, Jack remembers some steps and finds a hidden shed with plenty to drink. He recalls escaping the last time because smugglers used the island as a hiding place, and he was lucky to leave the place. The next day, Jack wakes up to discover that Elizabeth has set fire to everything in the hidden shed. She says the whole Navy is looking for her, and with that sign they will find her. Later, this happens, and a ship arrives at the island and rescues them. Elizabeth wants to search for Will, her savior, and Jack says that the pearl is damaged after the battle, giving them an advantage. Commodore disagrees, but Elizabeth offers herself as a gift to marry him. The captain accepts and offers Jack a chance to help them go to the island of the dead in exchange for fair treatment. Back on the Black Pearl, Jack's crew is held prisoner, and Barbassa's pirates tell Will that they knew his father. However, Bill is angry about what they did to Jack Sparrow and reveals that he received the medallion from him while he was hiding. In his rage, Barbassa ordered them to tie a cannonball to Bill's foot and throw him into the depths of the sea. Unfortunately for them, he was essential to breaking the curse. Everyone arrives at their destination, and near there, Commodore and his men, along with Jack, are approaching in the Pearl. Jack, having a plan, goes alone on a small boat, while Will is taken to where the treasure is. Just before Barbassa could kill Will, Jack arrives, surprising the captain. Jack takes advantage of the moment, showing some of the coins, and explains his plan. He says it's not a good time to go through with their plans because the British fleet is nearby, and they might attack without realizing they are already cursed. In the end, they can have 2 ships, the Pearl will be commanded by him, and the spoils will be divided between them. As he talks, Jack secretly steals one of the coins without Barbassa noticing. Following the captain's orders, the pirates prepare a plan and use 2 of them dressed as women to lure the British soldiers, while others, with their cursed bodies submerged in water, approach to surprise the soldiers. Elizabeth is in her room when Governor Swan talks to her from outside. But when he enters, he discovers that she has escaped by boat. The pirates slowly board the ship and kill some soldiers, but they are soon spotted, and a fight begins. The governor, afraid, locks himself in his room. Back inside the cave, Jack puts one of his plans into action and attacks Barbassa and some pirates who stayed with him. Jack Sparrow fights his enemy, while Will fights against 3 of them. Elizabeth, on the other hand, reaches the Black Pearl and manages to sneak in. She proceeds to free Jack's crew. In the midst of the fight between Jack and Barbassa, the Black Pearl's captain stabs Jack with a sword, but it doesn't kill him, as we soon find out that Jack is also under the curse due to stealing the treasure. Meanwhile, the governor is attacked, but he manages to escape the pirates' clutches and, breaking one of their hands, traps it in a drawer. While Elizabeth and the others finish off the last pirates of the Black Pearl, she decides to go after Jack and Will, but they refuse and let her go alone. Commodore's soldiers enter the ship and fight against the numerous pirates. Elizabeth reaches Will and helps him defeat the 3 pirates by locking them together and then blowing them up. To conclude, Jack takes the stolen medallion, cuts his hand to stain it with blood, and throws it to Will. He then shoots Barbassa. Will Turner does the same, returning the 2 medallions and breaking the curse, causing the pirates to stop their attack, as they are no longer undead. After this, Jack discovers that the pirates took his ship, so he has no choice but to surrender to Commodore. The scene cuts, and we see Jack about to be executed on the gallows, with Elizabeth and Will Turner present. Will approaches Elizabeth, expressing his feelings, and then goes to free Jack. To assist him, Elizabeth pretends to be unwell, giving Will time to throw his sword and support Jack. Will fights the executioner and frees Jack from the ropes. Then the 2 start knocking down the soldiers, but being only 2, they are surrounded by them. However, when Elizabeth shows her protection and love for Will, the soldiers cease their threats and leave them in peace. Jack, eager to escape, jumps into the water, knowing that the Pearl is nearby. He spots it and swims towards it. Meanwhile, Commodore grants a pardon to Will Turner, and Elizabeth shows her love for Will by kissing him. In the place where Barbassa lies seemingly dead, his monkey steals a medallion, becoming cursed once again. The movie ends with Jack being pulled back onto the ship, receiving the affection and honor of all the pirates who, in his hands, hand over the Black Pearl to him.